Hey, good afternoon and welcome to the latest CryptoAM Daily catch-up, where we get together to chat about COVID-19, government response, business response, people impact, and any other news. So let's see who's going to join us today. Fernando. Hey, good afternoon, Fernando.
Good
How are you
afternoon.
today?
Yeah, okay. Weather changed quite a bit, so
Yeah,
not pleasant.
as I was commenting to somebody earlier on, though, in the UK, this is possibly the first day where we've had rain for pretty much the whole day without any sunshine or blue skies since about the 15th, 16th of March, which is weird. I've never known that before, but that's good.
Yeah. In comparison, in Portugal and Spain, they've been having a rain for the past weeks, So I think we got the good weather here, but now there it looks like it's sunshine and
Okay.
pleasant. So
maybe the weather's gone back to normal then. Yeah, that's good. Hey, Mohammed.
Yeah, probably.
I see that. Good you join us, Mohammed.
Hello, hi. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Whereabouts are you? Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Dubai.
In where, sorry?
In Dubai.
Okay. And how are things in Dubai? We have George joins us sometimes from Bahrain, so we have a feeling of what's going on in the Gulf states. But I think you're saying it's quite tough in Dubai. Is that right?
It's it's total lockdown. Now they're opening up slowly, but still is everything is shut down basically.
Okay. Are you allowed to travel at all within the country?
Till 2 days ago, no. Only in Dubai. The rest of the country was okay, but we were not allowed to leave the houses without a police permit.
Yeah.
And only every 5 days, once every 5 days. But
Wow.
about 2 days ago, they started reducing the restrictions. The rest of the country was not like that. But from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. every day, we are not allowed to leave the house.
Okay, so you have an overnight curfew then? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 days ago, for a month, it was 24-hour curfew in Dubai.
Okay.
For a month.
So,
it was a bit crazy.
I was speaking with someone I know really, really well. I'm on his board. Yeah, and he went to Dubai to have a few meetings, and he was there on this third day. He was going back on the fourth day, and everything closed. He's still there, stranded.
Yeah.
4 weeks already. So he moved to Sharjah because he has a connection with the princess, there, and I think she's a patronage of the project that he's doing at the moment. But he said, he has his family and his wife and daughter at home. He can't go back home. It's just incredible. There's lots of people stranded around the world like that,
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you're out of the country, you cannot come back. My partner's stuck in Romania. He cannot come back to Dubai he's been there for a month now. So
Yeah,
it's a bit, weird, very weird.
So. Tough times, yeah.
And where are you guys at?
I'm in the UK. I'm just about 60 kilometres west of London, in a small place called Marlow in Buckinghamshire.
I'm in London, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and I heard that Dubai is going to open the airports, and Emirates going to start on the 12th or 14th of May. Is that right?
No, they have very limited flights now. They're going to open up in July. That's what they announced.
Okay, I thought it was May 12th or 14th.
May, you can leave the country, but nobody can come.
Wow. Okay, so they're allowing people to leave but not to enter.
Yes.
I guess that's one way of maintaining a kind of a lockdown.
It is a crazy word. I don't know what to say. It just all of a sudden.
From an infection control point of view, if you're interested in protecting your own community, then I guess allowing people to leave but not come in is not a bad way of doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
for sure.
still growing. Like today, there was, or yesterday, 500 cases. I mean, it's very difficult to contain fully. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
How many cases are there in total now then in Dubai, Mohammed?
In the country is over 10,000. I don't know. I don't follow, but it's over 10,000. Yesterday, about 500. Only yesterday.
No. And in terms of fatalities, deaths, do they have many?
No, very few, to be honest. Not very negligible numbers.
Okay. But
The healthcare system is very strong here. So, and they built additional hospitals as well, just in case. So they have, you know, capacity is very high.
okay. That's where it's kind of interesting looking at the UK, where we are currently getting somewhere between 500 and 700 cases, or 400 and 700 cases per day of deaths at the moment. And it doesn't appear to be that the healthcare system is completely overloaded. So there are some hospitals that are clearly very, very busy and have limited capacity, but there are other hospitals that are very quiet. And they've also built what they call the Nightingale hospitals. So this is where in about a week, they've converted exhibition centres into temporary hospitals and that, and they've not had to use that capacity as yet. So it's fascinating that even though we've got the medical care available, we're still seeing a large number of deaths. So maybe it's just that we have a population who are quite ill to begin with, and this is just kind of topping them over the edge. I don't really know.
Yeah, probably. See, UAE is fully or majority are expats, and the expat population can only stay here if they have if they have a work. So you don't see lots of older population.
Okay.
And the local population is small in numbers, so it's and the health system is very strong, and the country has the ability to, provide for everybody. So it's yeah, it's less in that sense. But all the businesses are struggling, like you cannot even imagine. I don't know, after this ends, it will be major disaster for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the service sector, certainly things like hotels, travel, tourism, and that cope, because they're the ones who are going to suffer immediately.
Absolutely. See, Dubai in particular, I mean, is a tourism place, so hotels and, as you said, the services. Also, it is a huge expat population, so they don't, and since there is no income tax, there is no, the government cannot support the people at time like this. So, they're doing everything they can. So many of the small businesses, including us, for example, we're struggling big time. I mean, we had two lines of business. One of them is totally shut down, and we cannot collect our money from the clients. It's a big disaster. And the majority of the market here are small businesses, and many are on the month by month income. So it's not pretty by all imagination. Now the big companies like Emirates Airlines or the government support them, so they have no issue.
Well,
large ones never have a problem, isn't it? I spoke with someone I know in Dubai that he has a cybersecurity company there. They got all contracts cancelled by his customers in the last 2 weeks. That's it.
Yeah.
Why would they cancel the contracts though? Because you would have thought, if anything, at the moment, cybersecurity is even more important.
They will go because if they don't have customers, if they don't have money coming in, how can they continue to pay to people? It is like that. Yeah, it's going to happen,
Yeah, majority.
Everything is interconnected, isn't it? Everything is interconnected. So, for example, if you have a company and you pay for services of cybersecurity, if you don't have your customers, you don't have money to pay them. They don't have money. They cannot pay to their people, etc., etc. It's just it shows how the world is so connected today. Everything is interconnected.
Yeah, it is a crazy crazy time.
So one of the things that it's quite worrying is I don't think Dubai will probably suffer from these, but maybe you can tell me, you know better. Um, Property, and we just got someone who posted in one of the groups that Gary and I are, and you probably you are as well in that group. It's the mortgages are being defaulted by people that were buying 5 properties, 10 properties, and rent on Airbnb, for example. There's lots and lots of cases like that. Now, all of that business is gone, Airbnb, who's using Airbnb? They're probably one of the businesses that potential will sink, if they're not cash flow rich. So, I mean, it's all over 2008, like someone who posted in our group is saying, and I agree, actually, it's going to be a chaos because the government is going to probably, in the UK and in the US, the government is probably supporting people that if you have a mortgage, they will freeze your mortgage. But what about people who have done that as a business? That's, it's lots of them.
Well, even were the freezing mortgages were giving them a 3-month holiday. Because it's interesting, a while ago, I had my mortgage provider write to me and say, we're offering this mortgage holiday, but please note that you will still be paying interest on these 3 months. And I find that really interesting, given that interest rates effectively are at 0% right now, and yet the mortgage companies and the banks are still charging the consumers several percent. And I think I had a credit card offer come through the other day where they're offering a special deal at the moment with an interest rate of, I think it was just 17%. And it's like, hang on. And it's like, wow, the interbank rate is almost zero. The LIBOR rate is zero or near enough. Interest rate in the UK is very, very low. But credit card companies and people offering loans are still charging like in excess of 10% for people who are going to be quite desperate for loans pretty shortly. As you say, if you're losing customers, if you're losing business, if you're losing jobs, people are going to resort to credits to tide them over, and they're going to suffer accordingly. But I think, as Fernando says, the really interesting one's going to be if you start getting commercial mortgage loan defaults going on, which then means that property prices are going to start collapsing, which then means that the value of the property that is securing the mortgage is dropping and dropping. Then you're going to get all sorts of foreclosures, and it is going to be like 2009 all over again.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, here is even worse. People are defaulting. Banks are not the same thing. The central bank lowered the interest rate, but the banks didn't even bother. The central banks issued a letter to all the banks to give a holiday on all loans, 3 to 6 months. Most of the banks are not willing to do it, and if they do, they put certain stringent conditions that many people cannot meet. Okay. Just nothing makes sense, I mean, it's there is again, the banks will be secured anywhere, and here most of the banks are government backed anyway, so the real estate is mixed between government owned real estate and private owned, and the private owners are definitely struggling. Mm-hmm. Especially that they were, I mean, the market was getting, very bad in the last 2 years anyway, and people were hoping for Expo 2020, which is supposedly in October, and most probably that will not happen.
I think they've cancelled that already, haven't they? Didn't they announce a week or so ago it was cancelled?
They've announced they requested to be delayed by a year, and there has to be a voting. I think it's these days all the countries participating, they have to vote. But again, I mean, it doesn't make sense to have it this year. I mean, even if they do, nobody will come, and again, it's just like a very strange situation for us. We don't know. We just like, for me personally, I've been 2 months locked in at home. I was in Milano in mid-February. When I came, they asked me to stay for 2 weeks, and then from then till now we are at home. Well, good thing is that all services and facilities are available, so we're not really struggling, but the business is unclear.
That's something I like. Hey, Adam, thanks for joining us.
No problem. How you doing?
Hey, not too bad. How's your day so far?
Bit busy. Just been on the phone over to a lot of clients over in Africa at the moment. Seeing how things are. So yeah, kind of busy.
You can probably give us the update there. Actually, what's going on in Africa at the moment? How they're responding to this?
Yeah. So because they've done two things actually. One, two things. They've started. Well, they've got a group that's managed to produce a test product that's really cheap to test people with. I think it works out to be almost $1 or so. So you guys might have heard about it or not. So that's really good because, you know, within Africa, it's not one of the richest continents for the workforce out there. People on really low wages and stuff. So when you're looking at what people can afford for doing their own tests and stuff like that, and they've managed to produce something what's like less than what's like $1, it's really good. So this is a really good positive thing. But then where we look at how that nation is at the moment with the outbreak, it's not the best because it's spreading quite rapidly. But because Africa is a country where a lot of these viruses, not corona, for example, other viruses like Ebola and etc. has been there before, they can manage these kind of pandemics quite well.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? Because Africa was initially slated as one of the regions that the World Health Organization was worried about in case there was a massive spread. But
Yeah.
as you say, in some ways, they're actually quite well equipped that they've got first-hand experience with Ebola and with other outbreaks of things like malaria and that. They seem to be quite well equipped with medical type situations like this. So kind of an ironic positive.
100%.
But it'd be interesting to see, because the other region that we're not really hearing from at the moment is South America.
Of course, yeah.
And that was the other area I think that the WHO was saying that they had concerns about. And I was hearing some stories in, I think it was Brazil, or possibly Colombia, where there was some outbreaks going on. But I think Colombia is kind of interesting because I get the impression that Colombia is governed by the cartels more than the government. And
they are.
and so bizarrely enough, it means when people are told to not do something, they don't do it. Whereas in the UK, you know, we're told to not go out, and you still see people traveling and that kind of thing. So we'll see.
It's actually quite funny you saying about cartels, because I remember reading something where one of the cartel families were distributing face masks, and on their face masks it had one of their family relatives' faces on it, but because they were giving it away, I didn't think a lot of people liked it, but they're doing something that other people wouldn't be doing anyway.
But it's something in a way. It's kind of like the gang culture in a way, isn't it? That effectively it's putting a logo that if you're in my gang, we will protect you. So it's kind of an ironic thing. It's a little bit like I remember years ago there was an outbreak of British based chip shops and Chinese takeaways, where all of a sudden I think the triads were moving in, and you had to pay protection money, otherwise suddenly your shop would get burnt down overnight. And you saw more and more of these little pictures appearing in the windows of the Chinese shops, and it was simply as a sign to say that they've paid their fees to the local triad gang, and so it wouldn't get burnt down. Which is bizarre, because when you actually go back a few hundred years, that's exactly what happened in London, and it's how the London Fire Brigade was established, and it's how insurance came about. That it was actually almost a protection racket, that the people who had signs up to say they're protected by the fire brigade had paid a premium not to be protected by the fire brigade, but to stop having their house burnt down. Strange.
That's very true. Ironic. Yeah. That's reminds you of is it the Craigs that used to do it, the protection thing.
Yeah, the Cray twins and East London and everything. An interesting thing. So is anyone hearing any other developments, any significant changes in what's going on? Because I'm just seeing that everyone everywhere seems to be saying, oh, we're hitting the peak, we're calming down, let's start having a relaxation of lockdowns. You know, let's see what Sweden are doing, because they've not had the restrictions in place, they're not having the deaths. And in particular in the States, I'm seeing a real groundswell around people saying, hey, this is all a conspiracy, let's open up, this is all trying to kill the economy.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you touch on how the curve is now,
so I think that was just Mohammed in the background. I've just temporarily muted him. Carry on, Adam.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we look at how the curve is in different countries and stuff, and where it's kind of peaked and it's kind of bottoming down now. And then, you know, when we look at America, where they've said, well, Mr. Trump himself has said how he's not putting any kind of restraint on when companies can really kind of opening the doors and, you know, start things moving again. And, you know, we've got Europe, they've really kind of put together their kind of, should I call it an exit plan? But the UK is still kind of struggling behind having an exit plan. But I still got my personal thoughts is, you know, I think, you know, this lockdown's going to go on at least into September time. The reason being is because, you know, even if we still don't have a vaccine, you know, there's going to be another drop and then a peak again, because once everybody starts connecting with people again, it's going to start all over again. And, you know, with the Oxford University, I know they've come up with some kind of vaccine at the moment where they're doing their clinical trials, and they're saying that something could be released as early as I think it was either August or September themselves. But then, you know, you've still got to put it through so many thousands of people to making sure that there is no side effects, that it can actually cope, and, you know, and it is kind of user friendly. So, you know, my takes on how the curve is with everybody else and all the countries coming together, I think, you know, we're still in for the long haul. And I don't think the UK's really, you know, geared up to kind of put everybody back in the work force yet.
I think you're right, and some of the conversations I've been having with people as well suggests that the reason that the government has created these Nightingale facilities, which like the reserves and that kind of thing, which just aren't being used at all at the moment, is not for this current wave, but is for the next wave that we're inevitably going to get when we begin opening up and you get reinfections and that. Because then you're going to have a bunch of people who've had the infection already and who have recovered, but there's no reason why they can't be reinfected. And there seems to be some cases of that happening already. So that means you're going to have slightly weaker, slightly iller people being reinfected. Then you're going to get a new batch of people who weren't infected the first time round who come down with it. Then you're going to have the normal run-of-the-mill accidents and emergencies and that kind of thing. So I do think you're right that in a couple of months they might see a second wave coming through, and that's what they're really keen to avoid doing.
That's the danger. Sorry, I mean, like here in Dubai, for example, they're reducing the restrictions, and the fear is that the second wave will be, you know, much bigger than, you know, what was initially before. We have a client in the US. We're working with them to do a security token. They have a vaccine for COVID-19. And it's quite saddening to say that the government there in the US are not really interested in moving that for whatever reason. Although the company's name has been linked to the Trump administration through some of the conspiracy theories. The vaccine does exist, by the way, and it has been used in certain limited usages. Governments around the world are not, for what some strange, weird reason, they're not really aggressively moving on the clinical trials. They're delaying it and complicating it. You would think with the current market conditions globally that this will be the highest priority for every government. And what we are seeing is that's not the case. There are multiple companies with proven vaccine. The technology of creating the vaccine is not totally new. And most of them, if they have done some vaccine for a different type of coronavirus, it's just a small modification and the testing requirement is minimal. However, the delay is from the regulators. There is either they are pushing the big pharmas first to get their vaccinations approved first, or there is no general interest. I don't believe that these type of vaccines are very dangerous because although this coronavirus, this particular one might have, mutations different than the other ones, but the general structure of it is very similar to other coronaviruses, and the concept of that vaccine can work. If you notice, there are
Yeah,
lots of announcements for drugs available, but there is not a single one moving well with the clinical trial. The Oxford University, because they have the facilities in-house, they're not a commercial entity, so they can bypass many of these, commercial requirements. Any commercial company cannot, very few, 2 or 3 of them only been approved to start the clinical trial.
yeah, but there is one thing you have to remember, yeah, is that there is no current vaccine that has been proven to work against any coronavirus. So 17 years have passed since 2003 for SARS, and there's no vaccine yet. For MERS, there's no vaccine yet. Yes, there are a lot of people trying and testing, and they haven't found one that works. Because if you have found, no, they have not, because none of them are approved in any country in the world.
They are, but they didn't finish them because there is no commercial benefit for them. I can send you some. There are in the US. They have been approved by the FDA. But the companies that got the approval, they stopped because there is no commercial benefit for these vaccines for them.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest fear of a lot of companies that starts with anything like this. It's being commercial viable and what they can actually do and what money they can actually make from it. Sad to say, it's just like what Bill Gates is kind of doing with his.
So is my view on that. Yeah, if you have a vaccine that works, yeah, and if you have permission from any country, FDA or not, doesn't matter. Yeah, what you mean is commercially viable? Just make it there available for anyone to buy and say, I have permission from FDA, has been authorized. This is a valid coronavirus vaccine. I'm sure that there'll be countries queuing up to buy it. The fact is, WHO doesn't recognize anyone with a valid vaccine because nobody has managed to make it to actually prove that actually works. There is a lot of trials, there are lots of clinical trials, but not even one until today was approved by any country to be effective. Yeah, and WHO hasn't approved anyone to actually be able to provide, because the first thing that they will ask is, show me your studies and show me the sample sizes of the people and the trials that you've done. And none of them can do it because
now
they know they
you're
don't
talking
have
about the novel coronavirus or the previous ones?
previous MERS and SARS. Just Google it. Find one that is efficient.
I will send you 2 of them. They not efficient, because they have not used them. They have been.
There you go.
Yeah, wait. I'll tell you how it goes. Yeah, they have to do an initial testing. Number 1, they do animal testing, and then they do a clinical testing. Once
so
you
don't know
that,
if it works or not. That's my point. Until you actually try, you don't know if it works or not.
No, they did. They get the clinical trial, okay, and it does work. They get an approval. Usually after that, they get an FDA approval. It still doesn't be considered, even if the FDA, if they give you a license and approval, it's not the end of it. You still now have to apply it and do a long period of testing. That never happened because once they get the FDA approval, there are 2 companies I'm aware of. They have the MERS. They got the FDA approval, but they decided not to take it to market because they calculated the money and it didn't make sense to them. Now, is that the right decision? If I was that company, I would probably send it to the markets. Like, you know what, if somebody wants to use it, go ahead. These companies, they blocked it. They didn't want to take it to the market because when they did the calculation, it didn't make financial sense. So they were driven purely by commercial. In the current coronavirus and the new coronavirus, there are over 70 companies globally, the WHO. None of them has done the clinical trial on the coronavirus and the new one. And I don't see governments accelerating. As I said, we have a client, and I see that the struggle that they're going through to get the government to even give them the initial starting, period. For some weird reason, if I was any government and somebody say I have a virus for coronavirus, a vaccine, sorry, I will try to, look into it at least. It isn't happening for some reason. It's not as fast as you would assume it should be. The company that we are working with, they're willing to give the vaccine for free once it's approved, but they cannot give the clinical trial. They're in a very long queue. They have to wait for many bureaucracies in the US. US is one of the very difficult markets to get anything moving, to be honest. But again, even globally, UAE, for example, been talking to the authorities. There is no interest to do any clinical trial for vaccines. And
sorry to cut you off there, Mohammed. I clicked on the button almost by mistake. Sorry to cut you off there, but we're just about to run out of time on this call. So I'm afraid going to have to close it off for today because we've actually been on 30 minutes and Zoom kicks us off a few minutes after that. So thank you all for your contribution today, and thank you all for coming along. Don't forget this is running every day this week, so feel free to hop back on again. And I'll close off with my thing as always, as people now know, I've now washed your hands.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye all.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.